Let's take a walk into the future, where we can see what's going to happen and what needs to happen for us to break our habit of using so much fossil fuel so we can just rest and relax in front of our television sets and see what somebody else is doing, how the world's unfolding in Europe, in the Netherlands in particular, where they're beginning to embrace some changes that we're beginning to take a very hard look at, like disposing of our waste carefully, like making certain that we can communicate with one another effectively, using solar, using electrical energy from solar and from the wind to power our vehicles, being careful about where we work and how we get there, plugging in to work and workspaces almost anywhere, not just in a downtown office, and using a vehicle that might be shared, and sharing all of our resources so they'll be healthier, more exercise, happier, and using far less fossil fuels. This is an environment that's already in place in the Netherlands. And two people are going to talk to us about it and how they got it into place. We're going to listen to the Consul General and Frans Vermaas tell us how they're shaping a new future in Amsterdam. It's going to be very interesting. I'm delighted to be here in the home, the residence of a Consul General, Consul's cosines, like the cosine,
Yeah.
In mathematics, and Frans Vermaast. Frans is an expert in smart cities. Now, we're in a smart city, Frans, so you're going to have to tell me an awful lot to think you're going to be smarter than us. But first, Consul General, what is a Consul General? And you're from a country called Holland, called the Netherlands, the people are called the Dutch.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Right. Well, I'm the Consul General for the Kingdom of the Netherlands.
The Kingdom of the Netherlands.
Kingdom
That
of
means
the
you have a
Netherlands.
king.
We have a king, of course. Yeah, we have a king. And the Consul General is actually the guy that is responsible for the consular affairs. But we do something more. We are very much into trade development. Because there's so many opportunities for the Australians and the Dutch to team up in trade. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here.
Very good, very good. And, Frans, you are a smart city guy from Amsterdam, is that correct?
That's correct.
Tell me what smart cities mean to you and what you're doing in Amsterdam.
The basic purpose of the smart city is to make the life happier for the citizens.
Well, we all want to do that, but give me
We
some
all want to
ideas.
do that, and a secondary purpose, secondary objective is to reduce CO2 emissions, because we think that's a very good tool to make the life more happier for citizens. And basically what we do is to reduce the CO2 emissions by the combination of connectivity and electricity.
Now, how do you do that? Tell me, give me some ideas of some particular things you do.
For example, you implement a smart grid within a city, and a smart grid is for electricity to be bidirectional, but also has a component that you can measure it, because if you can't measure it, you can't control it. So it gives information back about the usage, but also about the current in the smart grid. And if you are able to measure that, then in the end you will be able to control it, either diversified to location or time-wise.
Well, give me some examples. When you say biodirection, that means I can feed electricity into the grid and get it out at my house.
So for example, if you would deploy solar panels on your roof and you will be on a holiday, so you won't use the electricity that's generated on your roof, you can put that back onto the grid, and you, via a tool or an application, you can sell that back to the grid. Most important thing there is that you have a local grid within your neighborhood. Otherwise you have the problem with GST problems if you put it back to the main grid. So it's basically
So you've created an electricity company in your neighborhood.
No, we do not have a electricity company in the neighborhood. This is one of the things that Leander, who's one of the co-founders of Amsterdam Smart City, and Leander is the electricity grid operator in Amsterdam, and they are involved by deploying that smart grid within that neighborhood, and that's only the infrastructure.
It's only the infrastructure.
Only the infrastructure, so it's not a utility company. But you become, in a matter of speaking, you become your own utility company for electricity.
So in your neighborhood, you become your own
Yeah.
utility.
Yeah.
Now,
And we do this on a small scale, so this is not citywide. This is just a pilot over in a certain area called New West in Amsterdam, in the city of Amsterdam.
so is this being rolled out, Consul General, nationally? Is this a new product that the Dutch or groups send around the
Well,
world?
it is an export product, of course.
Uh-huh.
You see what I said before, that we want to team up with Australia
Mhm.
on a variety of fields. Let me hook to that. What you see, agriculture, horticulture, water management. They're all things that what the Australians are looking for, we can provide. And what we are looking for, the Australians can provide.
Give me some things that you think Australia can provide.
Well, for example, when we look at the knowledge about water and water shortage,
Yes.
you're experts.
Yes.
And we are pretty good in too much water. So that's actually
We're
where we
pretty
can-
good in too little water.
Yeah, where we can find each other. The other thing, to give another example, it's the Netherlands, for example, in some fields very innovative. There's this guy in the Netherlands, I think it's an amazing story, there's this guy in the Netherlands who actually can take water out of the air.
Out of the air.
Out of the air. And that's what we call the Dutch rainmaker. So you can put a big propeller somewhere in an arid area and he will provide you with fresh water every day, which is very interesting.
Incredible.
That's rather incredible. So that's the innovative character of a lot of enterprises here in the Netherlands. Other example, horticulture is that we grow a lot of our foodstuff in greenhouses. And let me ask you the question, do you know which country is the biggest exporter of vegetables in the world? It's not the Netherlands.
Israel.
No, it's the United States of America.
Oh, really?
Do you know the second largest exporter?
Oh no, that's got to be the Netherlands.
Yes, that's the bullseye. True. But imagine,
But how do you do that? I've been to the Netherlands.
imagine
It's a small
size,
country.
the size, the United States and the Netherlands. And that actually is very innovative horticulture in greenhouses. And that linked with smart infrastructure. So we produce a lot of foodstuff and we'll ship it to the world.
No, this whole smart idea is kind of a process that becomes a product.
No, a service.
A service, all right, a
Yes.
service that's exportable because the techniques you can export. We can buy your techniques, you can buy ours. We have the Snowy River skiing. We have a lot of innovation in how to preserve water from the rooftops and so on. So these exchanges are kind of the new ways countries are doing business. Is that right?
Yeah, but it's not selling to each other. It's in collaboration with each other. So if you've got a service, we've got a service, and let's exchange things from that, and let's cross-fertilize, because the advantages of your services here in Australia and the advantages of our services in the Netherlands, they can just match up and make it a better world.
Well, let's follow this smart city, smart grid idea, because we certainly need a lot of that. I won't talk about our grid too much because I might use a different kind of term. But how do you see that sort of thing fitting into other cities like Sydney and other cities in Australia?
You can apply it to many cities, but also to remote areas, to rural areas.
Ah.
So it's not specifically for a dense area like a city, but it's basically what the unique thing about Amsterdam Smart City is not a technique. That's all there.
Okay.
It's the governance structure. So basically what we do is a bottom-up approach by citizens engagement. So we ask the people what they want, or there's a small company that says, oh, I've got this service, and then we implement it into an area with only 500 units. And to learn from that, not only to learn for what are the obstacles there, but also what's the behavioral change that's happening with the citizens and to learn from that. And what we do as Amsterdam Smart City, it's not a government body, as I mentioned.
Oh, it isn't?
No, it's founded by the Amsterdam Economic Board that has all the companies as a member that are situated in the Amsterdam area, and Leander. And Leander is the electricity grid operator, as I mentioned.
So this Leander is a flexible organization. It can move from one neighborhood to another without...
They own the whole grid in the whole of Amsterdam.
The whole grid of...
Yeah.
So Leander is the big grid company.
Is the grid owner.
And they're broken it down into neighborhoods, offering different packages in these neighborhoods.
Offering different packages, doing trial and error, because they need to renew their middle grid. And they want to see what these new initiatives and new ideas will have, what the effect is on their grid. So before they renew their whole grid, they want to see how can we make their grid.
This is interesting for me, because I came up in the era when big was better.
Mm-hmm.
So bigger grids, bigger automobiles, bigger everything. And now it sounds like small is beautiful.
Yeah, it getting there, that small is beautiful, but there's another thing you have to bear in mind. You do not need to own things anymore, as long as it's available. And then you talk about energy, but you can also talk about cars. You do not need to own a car, but 90% of the time the car is doing nothing.
Sitting in a garage.
Sitting in a garage. So one of the big problems cities face is the congestion, but also the parking space, the limited parking space. So why not find a system like we have in Amsterdam called Car2Go, that there is availability for cars. So you become a member, and there's a car within 200 to 300
now,
meters.
we have that here, similar kinds of systems, but they've gone one step farther. In my daughter's city in Boston, you can rent out your own car.
Yeah.
And you can do that in Amsterdam as well.
You can do that in Amsterdam as well, and not only your car, but you can, if you have a drill and I need a drill, I'll just go to a platform and see where I can borrow or rent a drill from a neighbor.
I remember that when I was living in Berkeley, California, they had the tool library.
Yeah.
My wife was always worried when I went there, but I've got the idea. So there's an innovation space that I hear coming from both of you. It's not necessarily new technologies, but new techniques, new ways of thinking about how we get to the future.
Yeah, and one of the main things you have to bear in mind is that you have a holistic view on the whole concept of smart cities. So don't think in silos, don't think in transport, don't think in environmental, don't think in physical planning department, but integrated and cross-silo.
Well, who's the integrator? Because when you're crossing silos, someone has to pull all this together.
That's where the vision comes from, for example, a local government, and this can be either a city government, a state government, but also a borough government, that they come up with a vision and say, this is what we'd like to establish within the city in the next few years, and we're going to look for partners who can establish that. So there's hardly any money involved there's hardly any public money involved.
This is a totally new concept, but I still see the need for a driver, someone who helps, and I assume that's your role.
And that's the role of Amsterdam Smart City as an open platform to bring together partners, both from the public sector.
So you work for the city?
No, I work for Amsterdam Smart City. I'm hired by Amsterdam Smart City, which is founded by the Amsterdam Economic Board and Leander. And what we do is we have much easier access to city officials. So we can arrange things much easier than if you would have come as a private company.
Very interesting.
And what we do there is also to look for what relief on regulations are necessary just for that local area or just temporarily. Because one of the main obstacles you face is the regulatory issues or permits. So to give you the example where we helped the fiber to the home company to deploy fiber is that we give them one permit for the whole of the city, so they don't have to apply for another permit for every street.
So you're an advocate, kind of, for these new facilitators,
and we guard the process as well. And we make sure that if you participate in a project, that you will have an active role. what you sometimes notice within other projects is that people are sitting in the project just to listen and to steal ideas. If you do not have an active role within the projects, if you're a public partner, a private partner, or an audit institution, you will be asked to leave.
Can I add one thing?
Yes, I want to ask you, because this sounds like, first of all, this is a different kind of ethic, because there's a lot of this holding your own stuff back.
Exactly.
This is more of a Dutch approach to doing business in general. But is this spreading? Is this being taken up across the country?
It's taken up in the country, but also in Europe, but also worldwide, because we truly believe that sharing knowledge, you will have much more benefit than keeping the knowledge to yourself.
Yeah.
And for now it works. And to give you the example that that we work globally is we're part, for example, of City Protocol, and City Protocol is an organization which has which want to create the Internet of Cities. So yeah, you're aware of the Internet of Things or the Internet of Everything. Yes. But what we'd like to do is to focus on the city and make the Internet of Cities. So there's about 10 cities globally are a member. So hopefully Sydney will become a member. That's what we're gonna try to work on the next week. But there's Charlotte in the United States. There's Barcelona. There's Dubai. And so we're looking for Singapore and Jakarta at the end of this month.
I think you can sign us up. But you were going to add something.
Well, I want to add what I heard in the discussions we've had, because we're cruising different cities now. We just returned from Melbourne. We'll go to Newcastle as well.
Okay.
And we're now in Sydney. And what I really overheard people saying, that's what I really liked, is that it attracts all kinds of smart guys coming to Amsterdam or being connected to Amsterdam, inviting or inventing apps where you can really, with that app, you can really contribute to a smart city. For example, parking apps, energy consuming apps, all kinds of those things. And I think in that respect, that would provide all kinds of technical
know-how.
Know-how that actually could be very worthwhile on an international market.
Yeah, yes, I was in a city recently that had an app factory, and they just invited smart people in, and they were inventing apps of every kind. Some made money, some didn't, but it got a lot of young people off the street in a sense, because they wanted to develop apps for their games and apps for this, and then they developed apps for the home and apps for weather and all kinds of things.
But if I may jump to that, that's one of the natural roles for government, is that to make the data available and to categorize data that are available from within the city, but also from sensors within the city, but also from big companies. And if they make the data available, make sure that there's no privacy issues and guard that privacy is protected, then you will invite, like we do in Amsterdam, all the really small companies and these youngsters who build apps. We have a competition, it's called Apps for Amsterdam, and every month we choose the best app. And to give you an example, what some guy did, which I think it's brilliant, is a person in a wheelchair, a disabled person. He developed, with the data provided by the city, an app that if he goes through the city, he has his mobile device, he goes via the public buildings, and on his device it will show if there's a toilet available which is accessible.
It's like having his own seeing eye dog with larger range.
But this is what happens, and there's other people who have completely other interests. There's also a guy who identified all streets in Amsterdam that have oak trees. So, but this is the main point of the approach of Amsterdam Smart City. It's not a top-down approach. There must be a vision, but then let it come from the bottom up and encourage it. And if people are having trouble because of regulations, that's where the city can help. And for the other example is we wanted to install 500 smart meters in houses. I think the situation here in Australia is not that much different than in the Netherlands, but people do not trust the utility company. So if the utility company knocks on the door, usually they slam the door. So what we did there is we asked the housing corporations can we, in your renovation project, can we install smart meters? And what we did is to give these guys the clothing of the city of Amsterdam, and then they're trustworthy. And so we put in the smart meters. And the thing we did not put one type of smart meter, no, in 500 houses, every 100 houses, we installed a different type of
So you
smart
had
meters.
5 different kinds of smart meters to
And-
test them all.
And learned from the people what they prefer, and out of those 5, the best experiences were taken into one smart meter, and that's now rolled out in the end in the city.
What I'm hearing from both of you gentlemen is Holland is kind of a living laboratory.
That's one of the approaches we do, is the living lab. Just ask people, and there's no fixed roadmap. We'll just go ahead, we'll find problems, we overcome problems, we try innovative solutions.
But that's very uncomfortable for government, isn't it?
No, not for us.
But it is. In the old ways, government used to think it was controlling, managing, giving permits, saying no. Saying no is the best word for government. And now you're saying is yes to everything as long as for the common good.
Yeah, on small scale projects, and see what the benefits are, but also what the obstacles are.
And what can be shared.
And what can be shared. And it's just not to overestimate what Amsterdam is doing. Out of the 70 projects we did, only 17 succeeded. Because it was not the right timing, the technique was not right, or the technique was not compatible yet with another technique. The wrong type of financing. For example, in Amsterdam, if you come up with a project now, you have to bring 75% of the financing yourself. And
That's
then,
a lot.
And then we may consider to invest, so not subsidy anymore, but invest another 25% to make it all happen. So it's the other way around. In the past, companies came to the government, oh, we've got a great idea, can we please have 1 million euros? Now it's the other way around. A company comes to the city, says, we have a solution for this, or we want to invest there. Here's 750,000 euros. Are you willing to consider to invest the rest of the 25? And 9 out of 10, the government does not need to invest because they know other
Possible investors.
possible investors to. But that's I think that's the key role of a government, which is facilitating. And
Excellent.
make sure that in the end, they always have to bear in mind what's in it for the citizen. In the
Now,
end.
I want to close this now with you, Consul General. You're talking about a new model of government. Different kind of export, sharing, not just a one-way. We usually measure exports by imbalances and so on. You're talking about a totally different way. How is this being received on a larger scale, on the international scale? Is this an approach that has gained momentum in Europe, in the United States, where?
Now, what you will see in the end, of course, trade development is about money making.
Yes.
And we can all be very frank on that. And that's good. So what we'll do is that we have this very innovative economy. And actually, we want to team up. We'll, to have your experience embedded in our products, and you have our products, and you can use them as well. So what we really are here for is trying to sell these kind of machines, services,
Ideas.
know-how, ideas, because that's why we're here for.
But there's another part of this,
Yeah.
and what I'm hearing from this is you have to have a partner on the other side
Mm-hmm.
who's also innovating, and that's what
Yes.
Australia has
Yes.
to be. We have to be an innovative nation.
Yeah.
Coal's running out; those other things are running, but brains are not running out.
True.
And there are really good connections between our countries
Yes.
because if we can solve your problems when you need water, and you can solve our problems when we have too much water, and if we can together solve energy and other problems,
Yeah.
we make a better society, better communities, and have better
And
trade.
the other thing about that, which I think is very interesting, when you join up, when you team up, Australians and Dutch, together you can go to third countries and solve those problems as well.
That's true.
Because these kind of problems are so vast, we can't do it alone.
No, in the rest of the
Therefore,
world.
Yeah, we really want to join with you guys and do it together.
Agreed. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Goodbye, so long. See you next time for another exciting adventure and more sustainable